All right, I'm back. That took way longer than it should have. My ADD just started flaring and whatever. Okay. So you need to appreciate where I'm at. I kind of gave the summary last. Could you tell at the end of last video that I had to take a shit? Maybe if you go back and watch that video and like pay attention to my facial expressions, you can tell that there was one brewing. I'm not a junkie anymore, so I have healthy bowel movements now. I'm sorry for saying that. It's the kind of thing that, like, if someone I know said that to me, I'd probably feel uncomfortable with them telling me that. But anyway, let's move on. So, I've been jumped multiple times, been in a riot. How many times have I been maced? Been in the hole multiple times now. And I'm not saying that I wasn't running amok. I mean, I kicked a guy while he was sleeping. That's generally frowned upon by law enforcement or anybody in any authority figure position. You're not supposed to kick people ever. They should legalize kicking though, for sure. Because that guy fucking deserved it. So, but there I was. I go back to the hole. Got maced again. And thankfully somebody kicked me down some weed. I blew the range up because I just didn't care anymore. I truly think that there's like a threshold that human beings can reach where you just, I don't know, you kind of run out of fucks to give. You're like, oh, whew, there's my last fuck. That's out of the way. All right, I'm just going to do whatever now because it doesn't matter. Now, it should because I just had a baby, but it's hard to describe. I'm a drug addict. I'm not saying that any of this excuses my behavior because once I knew he was coming into the world, that I was going to have a child, I should have just started walking the line, do what I'm supposed to do. I got to own up to the fact that it was a mistake to be the way that I was in jail, regardless of the fact that I'm a drug addict. I mean, I'm a drug addict. That does not give me an excuse to do drugs in prison, to risk more time. What if I got an in-house possession? Certainly, I don't know, the thing about kicking the dude on the bench, like stuff like that. I've talked about it a million times. I grew up non-violent guy, I was the kind of guy where, like, if you hit me, I curled up in a ball and I was like, dude, stop hitting me. No, that's not true. I'd fight when I was younger, but I really didn't like it and I was scared of it. I was definitely scared of fighting, I always thought, like, the worst. I think it's because I have a vivid imagination. Like, someone would be yelling at me and I would just, like, picture my eyeballs, like, spilling out of my eye sockets like they were gory tears or something. I was like, oh my God, what if that happens? Oh, and then I'd, like, freeze up. Then I went to prison that first time and it really took the piss out of me. It made me just, like, I go from 0 to 100 and I see red and there's really just nothing that you just can't stop me when I'm like that. And it's not even like that I'm tough or anything. It's just that I've gone a little psychotic. I mean, prison turned me more violent. It radicalized me in a lot of ways, politically, desensitized me to violence, and it gave me this, like, ego complex, where, like, oh, it's like, I'm drawing a line in the sand. Don't step over that line, brother. Oh, you're tiptoeing over that line. Oh, you're over the line. Dude, the line was crossed. I gotta stab this guy now. There, you're stabbed. You stepped over the line. You start to care more about what people think about you. Before, I wouldn't give a fuck. Okay, so the guy jumped me with a bunch of homeless tweakers. Who cares? But the way that I've been conditioned with my ego in prison is that, like, you think these guys that were in the drunk tank would ever even see me again? No. So just think about that. That was for my own, like, that was, like, for my own closure. Like, oh, you did me dirty. All right, that's what's up. Blah, 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 blah. Get him. Now I feel better about myself. But there I am in the hole. I blow up the range. Stinks like herb. And I just don't give a fuck. Like, yeah, so I'm smoking. You know? Jesus, it's legal. They should have weed on commissary. Could you imagine how much, could you imagine like a prison riot if everyone was stoned? Could you imagine how scary a prison riot would be if you were stoned? Oh my God. I'm having a heart attack just thinking about that. But the point is like this term, as bad as it's been already, all the bad things that have happened, they don't even come close. Don't even scratch the surface for how bad it got once I got into, once I got to a state penitentiary. I was like, oh my God, this is crap. I felt like I was an American Me or something. It was really brutal. So the next morning I wake up and I'm hungover from the weed. I mean, when you don't smoke weed frequently, first of all, you get really high. I smoked an entire stick, which is probably the equivalent of literally this much weed. Let me see if I can put this in my palm. A stick of weed is literally this much weed. Can you see? It's that much. Stuff that you would just scrape off. I keep it. I'm cheapskate. Stuff that you would just if you're rolling a blunt or a joint or something, you just brush it off your pants. And in prison, people are like, that's $10. You're like, right here, I'm going to smoke it. And, it's one hit. But when you haven't smoked for a long time, you get blazed, right? And I do not like weed. I don't like weed. I don't like weed now. I didn't like weed then. I didn't like weed in high school where I was insecure every time I smoked it. I get insecure when I smoke it now, when I'm by myself. I'll just be sitting there typing and I'll hear, you're a bitch. Be like, I am a bitch. And then I'll just close the laptop and I'll be like, I can't write anymore. That's it. That's the end of the story. I get really insecure when I smoke. I don't like it. But that being said, first of all, when I was a heroin addict, I smoked weed just to deal with the stress of being a heroin addict. And when I'm sober, my interpretation of sober, where I'm off heroin and alcohol and crack, can't really claim sobriety if you're smoking rock. Yeah, you can't. That would sound ridiculous. Oh no, I'm sober, dog. Just gonna smoke this. I'm gonna take a booyah blast. Got 37 days. Yeah, that doesn't work. So, sobriety for me is pretty much just not being on crystal meth, cocaine, alcohol, opiates of any kind, right? Weed, I do not consider that using drugs. But I don't like weed to begin with, like I was saying. And weed, I really don't like it because I'm one of those people. There's people that I never understood, the guys that smoke weed and somehow they're better at life. They're like, dude, check this out. And maybe before they're juggling oranges when they're not stoned, and they get stoned and they're juggling pineapples with blades in the cone. I don't know. Sometimes, hey, I can't hit them every time, guys. Sometimes I misfire. Weed makes me slow. It makes me stupid. It makes me lazy. Makes me want to beat off. I'm like that sober, but still, throw that into the list of things that it does for me. And in jail or prison, it makes me paranoid as fuck. I remember that night just sitting there hugging my knees. I felt like I was in some foreign German film or something, there's the little kids that hug their knees in poverty-stricken parts of Germany. God, I'm on some weirdo shit tonight. So, when you don't smoke a lot, you're hungover the next day, and you're like, well, why do you smoke if you don't like it? Because I don't like reality more. And then nowadays, I smoke herb because I have PTSD from all the stories I'm telling you. And when I smoke bud at night, it helps me decompress, and I don't go crazy. If I don't smoke weed, I'm a fucking psychopath. Karina and my parents will vouch for that. I'm totally different when I don't smoke at night. I only smoke at night. But anything is better than reality when you're locked up. Next day I wake up, I've got the weed hangover, which sucks, right? They put me on the bus and see a couple people I know, just talking to people. I'm just happy. I mean, I've been in the hole at Victorville for like a month. Can't believe I beat that dude up the very first night that I was back in custody in Santa Barbara. And like I knew that I was on my way to state prison. I'd already been down 8 months at this point, and remember, I got convicted of 8 months in federal custody, and I had already signed a deal for 3 years in the state. The state was going to run that 8 months that I just did in the feds concurrent to what my state sentence was going to be. So in theory, that 3 years, you do half in the state. So that's 18 months. So I had about 10 months left because I'd already signed the deal. Just going to court to get sentenced was just, that's just a formality. That's how it works. You get arrested, you put in an initial plea. You usually say not guilty unless you're a fucking J-cat. I've seen people like that. They like, you're always supposed to say not guilty on your first appearance. And I've seen people be like, I did it. I'm guilty, man. Do what you gotta do. Judge is like, okay. And they just, I've seen that. It's very rare, but you do see it. So generally you plead, not guilty, whatever. Fight the case. Eventually change your plea or you take your plea deal if you don't go to trial. I've never gone to trial. But if you take a plea agreement, they come at you, they give you what the deal is. In this case, it was 3 years. And that's when you change your plea to guilty. So then they go, Ryan, are you a pimp? And I'm like, I'm guilty. And then you go back for sentencing. But I already knew what it was going to be. It was going to be 3 years. So I get to court. They put you in the drunk tank all day. And my public defender, I had this public defender now, this woman. And she was cool. She always had lipstick stains on her teeth, but it was whatever. I used to fuck with her. Even when she didn't have it, I'd be like, hey, lipstick right there. And she'd be like, oh my God. But like, sometimes she wouldn't even have that. But I think she was so used to having lipstick stains that it was just one of those things where I could fuck with her. And then, of course, I was saving up farts for when I was in the elevator. If I can do that when I'm in custody, I do it every time because you have to take that intimate elevator ride with the COs. And I love pounding milk and coffee before I go to court and then getting in that elevator. It's already demeaning to stand in the corner like you're fucking 5. But I love just standing in the corner and just like, and I'm like, oh, excuse me, man. And they try to like act like they're not even mad. They're like, why are you looking like that? Hey, look at the wall, Leone. Farter. All right. Do another one real quick. I swear, too, I do that every time. I'd laugh so hard. I'd get back. People would be like, did you do it? I'm like, hell yeah, I got him. Sprayed him down. Fuck those fucking pigs. Sorry, YouTube. Please show ads in the beginning of my my video. No, I don't rely on that shit. They partially monetize it. So you see ads, and they should be giving me, like, all the ad revenue, but I'm only getting a fraction of that. Thanks, guys. But I am grateful, YouTube, because you guys do technically employ me. That's how I make my living, is off Patreon and YouTube, so thank you for that. So, while I'm at court, though, before the elevator thing, right, I meet with my attorney. And she's like, all right, so, nothing too exciting today. We're just going to go for sentencing. And I'm like, well, I got letters, to the judge. Did you get those? She's like, yeah, I got them. And I'd gotten a good amount of letters. I got one from the producer Wendy Benge. I got one from Nick Stahl. I got one from Don Winslow, Jim Oles, Will De Los Santos, Joe Clifford, shitload of, like, Jeff wrote me one, Karina wrote me one, my parents, my aunts, my uncles, chicks I fucked like 19 years ago, or I like hit them up on Messenger. I'm like, please write this letter. They're like, I got you. It's Mandy, the invisible chick that I invented while I was in the hole at Victorville. She wrote me a letter too. And so I tell my public defender, because remember, I had Adam Perlman, the worst fucking attorney ever, who told me that if you ever say that, I'm gonna sue you for slander. Sue me for slander, Adam. I will put a report to the Bar Association that you told my parents that one of your former clients, my baby mama now, was arrested for accessory to murder after the fact, and you represented her. It was a DUI, buddy. And you can't go around telling people what your other clients you've had charges are anyway. That can't be ethical. You can probably be debarred. But anyway, he told me when he wouldn't comment to Penthouse magazine about me, I was like, you're my attorney. Say something favorable. Like, say I didn't do it. He's like, I don't deal with the press. I'm like, you're a bitch, dude. And then I was like, you know what? All right. When I get interviewed by the Santa Barbara Independent, I'm going to tell them you're the worst attorney I've ever had and that you're a punk. He's like, if you say that, I will sue you for slander. Sue me. Sue me. Please sue me, Adam. Worst attorney ever. If you're thinking about hiring that guy, don't go with Robert Sanger. That guy always helped me. He got me out of some crazy shit all the time. And he also was Michael Jackson's attorney, which is probably not something to be proud of, considering he's like a superstar chomo. He's like the most famous chomo ever. Think about it. It's horrible. I liked his music too. But I don't know. I hear mixed things. Like he was set up and I don't know. I think he was a fucking weirdo. That's what I think. Okay, so anyway. I do like his music though. I really like Thriller. Every time at Halloween I do the thing. Whoever I'm dating, whoever I'm holed up in a motel shooting crystal meth with. I'm like, dude, it's Halloween, let's do Thriller. Chick's like, yeah, Thriller. All right, so I'm like, you get the letters that like 50 people I know wrote for me? And she's like, yeah, but I don't think it'll be necessary, so I'm not going to submit them. I'm like, okay, yeah, don't humanize me to the judge. She's like, well, you already signed for 3 years, so there's really nothing that he can do anyway. His hands are essentially tied by the mandatory minimum, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, how am I even getting convicted of pimping and pandering? I didn't do it. There was no coercion. There was no money exchanged. I was like, this, by definition, is protecting a prostitute, which is a misdemeanor in the state of California. Protecting a prostitute is exactly what I did. Making sure that the prostitute is safe. There's no transaction. There's no money exchange. There's no coercion. There's no like, hey, suck that dude's dick and I'll give you crack cocaine. She's like, oh my God, I love crack. There's none of that shit. Protecting a prostitute. This girl had been arrested 3 times for solicitation. She comes to me and says, hey, can you help me find any Johns? I was like, I don't know Johns. Even though I do have some simp-ass fucking friends. I probably should have asked more people. Probably wouldn't be in this pickle to begin with. Got some simp-ass friends. Especially lately. Anyway. If you're watching, you know what I'm talking about. Simp-ass, dude. What I did was protecting a prostitute. That's a misdemeanor. Through and through, that's what I did, right? I'm like, how are they even getting it and on top of that, it was entrapment. It's classic entrapment. They manufactured a crime that never would have happened if they didn't set the crime up. I was not pimping in Santa Barbara. I was not an active pimp. Not like I had a business going where I was like, had an appointment book of different bitches I was pimping out. Oh, it's Thursday. No, it's Samantha's day today. So, sorry. Not that Samantha, sorry. It's just a random name I picked out of the old hat. And so my attorney actually, I'll never forget this. My attorney goes, yeah, you're right. We probably could have gotten you to supervising a prostitute. You're right. But it's too late now. We've already signed for pandering. and that carries 3 years. I was like, what the fuck? What do you mean it's too late? She's like, well, you make some good points. Yeah, this probably technically isn't pimping. Not in a traditional sense. I said, not in a traditional sense. What is that supposed to mean? She's like, look, Ryan, the DA was out to get you. You know, you were going to lose no matter what. I was like, well, that's not exactly how it works. I didn't do the crime. So therefore, I should not be taking a 3-year deal. And she's like, yeah, but you already signed. And I remember being so mad. I mean, she was basically telling me that, yeah, if she fought a little harder, I could have gotten it down to supervising a prostitute, which is a misdemeanor. You know what the difference between a misdemeanor and a felony is? You smoke gay. Yeah, somebody's going to say it. A misdemeanor is punishable by less than a year in prison. A felony is punishable by over a year in prison. So if I'd gotten convicted of supervising a prostitute, I would have gotten probation. Now, I was on federal probation at the time. So what would have happened is I still would have gotten a violation. So I probably would have done this amount of time anyway, but I wouldn't have been but now I'm a convicted pimp. When I got out of prison, they're like, have you ever been arrested for a felony? Now, back in the day when I'd only been arrested for conspiracy to distribute heroin, which sounds crazy. Sounds like you've planned the JFK assassination or something. Oh no, I just got a conspiracy on my jacket. That's it. I mean, that shit sounds wild to like a normal person. What the fuck does that even mean? Conspiracy. You know, it sounds crazy. I conspired to sell drugs, which, I mean, yeah, but you know, with that, I guess any drug transaction's a conspiracy by definition, right? I just happened to, but with that particular case, I for sure knew what I was doing was going to get me in a lot of trouble if I got caught. And I also knew that I was going to get caught eventually, because you can't sell drugs forever without consequences. I was sick with addiction at the time. Doesn't make what I did right, and I can own up to that. But the pimping thing, I really did get the short end of the stick. So I end up going into the courtroom. The highlight of it is that I got to see Karina and Nico. I'd only seen Nico that one time in the visiting room, and I just remember, like, my heart melted seeing him. He was crying. Karina was, like, nursing him outside. Not nursing him, like, with her boob in his mouth, but nursing him, like, giving him a bottle and, like, patting him on the back or whatever. I don't know. I missed, like, the first year or so, and I don't have a lot of experience with babies. But I remember my heart just melting. My parents were there as well. I go in there. Was not more than a minute. They're like, Mr. Leone, you have been charged with pandering, or they always have to say like the parenthetical fucking, or procuring a prostitute for business transaction, or whatever the fuck it was. We're sentencing you to 3 years to the California Department of Corrections. Happy birthday, Mr. Leone. May God have mercy on your soul. He's talking to me like I was getting a life sentence. I'm like, may God have mercy. We're talking about 10 more months, dude. Fuck. Like, the way he said it was like throwing the wrath down on me. That was just not bad. And it was my birthday. The fuck gets sentenced to state prison time on their birthday? It's just a bad day. One good thing, though, is that I got to see Nico and Karina and my parents. And, like, that alone was, you know, was worth getting sentenced to the 3 years. No, I mean, that just made my day, and it made my little weed hangover go away. And I remember, you know, I mean, it's an interesting thing when you get sentenced to prison, like the way that it feels. I mean, I'd already been sentenced to 5 years before, the first time. And I remember that. I've told you about that. Like, the judge was like, I sentence you to 60 months, 60 months in the Federal Bureau of Prisons. And I looked back at my dad, and my dad was just like, yeah, you know, because it could have been a lot worse. I signed 5 to 40, got 5 years. Second time, PO was asking for like a year. I ended up getting 3 months. And even though it was only 3 months, I remember, like, when they say it, it's like, fuck, you're going to prison. And when you've already been, you know exactly what that means. This third time, I was like a seasoned pro at this point, and I don't know. It didn't really faze me. He's like, sentence you to 3 years to the Department of Corrections. Happy birthday, Mr. Leone. May God have mercy on your soul. Felt like I was in Train Spotting or something. I should have said, what did he say? With God's help, Your Honor. No, what does he say? I will conquer this terrible affliction. Should have said some shit like that, but I didn't. Just like, okay. Yeah, all right. 3 years. Okay. And then they shuffled me away in my shackles. And I was like, I love you, baby. And she's like, I love you too, honey. And the cops were like, shut up, convict. I was like, you guys are so lame. I'm like, dude, I just had a baby. They're like, what? They said something fucked up too. What did they say? They're like, yeah, I feel sorry for your kid. I was like, okay. I feel sorry for you. This is you're doing a life sentence. You know, I get to go home eventually. You're going to be doing this the rest of your life. Don't be mad at me about it. Whatever. So they take me back, and remember, I had a cell in my phone. I had a phone in my cell, so I was able to call Karina, and I called her a bunch. And even though you're in the hole, they turn the phones off at 10 o'clock. So I remember I talked to her a bunch. I talked to Karina. You know, she looks back at, she always says that the time that I was at Santa Barbara County Jail, the time that I was kicking Suboxone the first time, through letters and through the few phone calls that we got, and then this period where I was able to talk to her for like literally hours. I mean, you only get 15-minute calls, but I'd hang up, call again. She was living with her parents, and I was getting royalty checks once a month. So, you know, I had plenty of money on my books. I was able to take care of her, and we pretty much got to talk on the phone as much as physically possible. And the next day was supposed to be visitation, but of course I got my visitation taken away now, because now I got a new incident report. Even though the captain was willing to squash, they had like, when I said before that they'd taken my visits for like 30 years or whatever, like I wasn't joking. They took my visits for like a really, really long time. Then the captain was or whoever, the lieutenant, I think it was whatever. I don't know what it is at jail. In prison, it's the lieutenant that makes those calls, or the captain. I'm not sure what it is in jails, but he had squashed that. Basically said I could get visits. You know, this is a guy that like, I'd basically, you know, been going in and out of Santa Barbara County Jail since I was a teenager. So he like saw me grow up, and I think he had some compassion for me, because he'd always see me come in there for like for drug stuff. You know, it's not like I was ever going in there for like some of the more serious crimes that were happening. Not like there are a lot of serious crimes in Santa Barbara, but you know what I mean. You know, there's definitely worse crimes than the stuff that I was going to jail for. And he was being nice to me, but then I I kicked that dude and pretty much beat him up in the drunk tank, so I got visits taken away again. And I remember talking to Karina, and I was like, you know, typically it takes 2 to 4 weeks to catch the chain to go to state prison, you know? I was like, so, you know, I'll call you in the morning, and, you know, at least I'm in the hole, and at least I have a phone in the cell. That's pretty rare for when you're in segregation like that. You know, I hang up right at 10 when they turn the phones off, get in bed. Sure, I masturbate for a long time, you know, and a couple hours later, they're like, hey, Leone, roll it up. You're going to prison. The day of sentencing, I was like, on my birthday, I was like, whoa, what the fuck? And, you know, I remember my heart just started beating. I had no idea what to expect for state prison. I mean, I'd heard stories. I knew that it was a completely different universe than federal custody, but I really had no idea that it was going to be as hardcore as it was. It really was the worst period that I've ever had in prison. I don't know, kicking methadone was pretty bad, but as far as like violence, riots, just living in absolute terror, when I got to state prison, it was the absolute worst of the worst. And we will get into that in the next video. Sorry for cutting this one into 2 different ones. Next time I'll try to be a little bit more prepared with my bowel movements. Please like, comment, subscribe. Check out patreon.com/Ryan Leone if you haven't already. If you like my stuff on YouTube, you really should at least go look at Patreon and see if it's something that's worth paying for. And if not, I'm a bitch and I'll still post stuff on YouTube. And I appreciate you guys. Stay safe out there. I appreciate you all. Palabra.